Great. So let's go around the table here and say hello. I'm Matthew. I'm in Montreal, and I'm the Climate Reality Leader Campaign Coordinator, and really loving it. So thanks very much for making me love what I do.
Who's next?
Go ahead, Kurt.
I'm Kurt Hull. I am in Winnipeg. I work for Climate Change Connection. In Winnipeg, I'm a mentor with Climate Reality since 2012, trained in 2010.
Good. Thanks. Hossein, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Hossein. Can you guys hear me?
That's better now.
Yes.
Now I can.
Sorry, whenever I get notifications with this new headphone, it just stops. I need to figure that out. But on that note, we have a small software company here in Vancouver, and I was trained in 2012 or 13, if I can remember correctly, in Chicago, and been a climate leader since. And love where this is going, and very excited to be part of it.
Melanie, with that?
Hi.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Melanie Pollock. I'm the Sustainability Manager.
Oh, that's really quiet, in fact, Melanie. Can you maybe approach the microphone? Or?
Is that better?
No, not really.
Yeah, I can't seem to turn the volume up. It's really quiet here.
Okay.
Is this better?
That is.
Much better.
Okay. I'm Melanie Pollock. I'm the Sustainability Manager for the City of Peterborough in Ontario, and I'm also responsible for the Climate Change Action Plan for the Greater Peterborough area, which is the City, the County of Peterborough, 8 lower-tier municipal townships, and 2 First Nation communities.
Terrific. Great to have you with us, Melanie.
Thank you.
Marie-Ève?
Hi, my name is Marie-Ève. So I'm involved with the Climate Reality Project here since 2012, and I worked at acquainted, which is an NGO in the province of Quebec, and I'm also involved in the movement against the energy East pipelines, which is called the Culpachine. Happy to be with you today.
Great, thanks. And finally, we have somebody on the phone from Toronto, it looks like. Is that Georgina?
Yeah, no, I'm actually here. Yeah, sorry.
Great. Do you want to just...
Yeah, Georgina Benchik. I was trained back in 2008 in Montreal. Since then, been doing presentations and moved on to do a little bit more government relations side on sustainability, as well as involvements with the UN Association of Canada. I had chaired their Toronto Environment Committee, as well as Rotary International. So thank you.
Great. Okay. So we might have a couple of other folks joining us as we go along, but I think, is that everybody? We didn't miss anyone, did we? No. So if we do have others that join as we go along, we'll take a moment to say hi as well. Great. So moving forward, why use Airtable? I think Mike summed it up very well. Pardon me for the airplane. I don't know how loud that is in your headphones. Mike summed it up very well on last week's webinar. And before I get into the why and how it can be used, can I get a bit of a show of hands around the group? Who was able to watch that webinar so far? Yes, no? Anybody yes? Okay, that's fine. We'll take this webinar, we'll take this workshop a little bit from the very beginning, which is totally fine because folks who will watch it in the future may not have watched the other webinar, so that's great. Secondly, has anybody had any experience with Airtable or played with it at all, or are we all starting from scratch? Can I get an idea? Anybody has experience or has used it? Okay, so it doesn't look like it. Very good. Okay.
Sorry to interject, Matthew. The Zoom link is not working for me. It keeps on saying try again.
The Zoom link says try again?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not able to see my screen if I was to share my screen, is that correct?
No, I just called in.
Okay. All right. I don't know if I'm going to be able to troubleshoot that right now.
Just make sure the program is installed. Maybe go through the Zoom website and see if it like installs. Yeah, and then try the link. Maybe it's just. I did it even on my phone yesterday, and that works too. So you could even go to install the Zoom app on your phone, and then just use the link on your phone, and then it opens it up.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't take too much more.
Good to have an IT guy on the line, eh?
It is. It is. All right. So moving quickly, the why and the how. I'm going to try to do that really, really quickly, maybe in 3 or 4 minutes. But the biggest why for me is the fact that it is scalable and free and almost as powerful as the paid programs that it replaces. So for many organizations, they will use a combination of things like Nation Builder or Action Kit, or in some cases, Salesforce. They are using paid software as a service applications that for citizen groups become unattainable. What's exciting about the latest developments in technology is that today we can tell John and Jane to get on board, get something started in their community. And it's not for professional organizers as much as it is for folks on the ground in their community that this tool is really, really exciting. It, as I mentioned in the introductory email, provides a CRM, customer relationship management functionality. It provides project management functionality where you're able to track tasks and you're able to assign people to tasks and see what's been done and what needs to be done. And very importantly, it is, like Google Spreadsheets, collaborative. So you can invite as many people as you want for free. There's no licenses to be purchased. There's no limitations to how many people can collaborate. And so that's where it is the same as Google Spreadsheets and Google applications in general. Where it differs, which is very interesting for the work we're doing with the Climate Hubs, is we can allow specific access. So I've got a big database, and I don't want to give access to everything to everybody, and that's just normal. And I can provide access to certain pieces of the database. I can say, I would like this sheet of the database to be accessible to everybody or to be accessible to a certain group of people. And I can include only certain pieces of information from that sheet. So all of a sudden, we're able to co-create a database all together and without it being overwhelming for everybody. So there are very, very easy entry points to contribute to this big database without needing to be an expert. So only 1 or 2 people in each community that the hubs are going to be established in will need to be an expert, quote unquote, or need to really understand how Airtable works. Everybody else can ride the wave, basically, and can contribute to the building of the database, contribute to using the data in the database without having to understand all of the back end. The other piece that I find brilliant about it, which is another advantage over Google Sheets, is that as a database and not a spreadsheet, you can present the data in different ways. So it's not simply a square with a bunch of cells. That is one of the ways you can present the data. As we will see in the examples, you can also present the data as a calendar. You can present the data as Kanban cards. You can present the data, you can present entry forms to the data in a similar way as Google Forms would produce. And there are a couple of others that I don't use frequently, but we can explore them briefly in a moment. So for me, that's the excitement here, is that for the first time for the last maybe 24 months this has existed, we have the ability, the power to offer these kinds of tools for free to citizens everywhere. And they are pretty easy to learn. I am living proof of that. So with that said, I would like to open it up to some discussion about what you've seen so far. Maybe you haven't seen anything, and if so, we'll just jump towards the practice exercises and get our hands a little bit dirty. But from what you understand of what's been described, I would like you to tell me maybe your reservations, maybe your doubts. Why should I use a new tool? How is it going to add value to what we're doing through this hub campaign, or if you want to apply it to other projects that you're working on. So to look at the time that we have, we've got about 5 minutes or 6 minutes for a bit of a discussion now. So Hossein, please.
Yeah, so I watched a video and like been looking around in this. This is really cool. And as you said, it has a lot of features that, we use, as an example, Jira internally here in our company, and that costs us a lot of money. This does a lot of, pieces of that. And again, I think for use for this would be free, and it's just awesome. It seems to have a lot of features. I think as we go along and as we fill it up with data, it's going to give us a lot of cool options that we can use.
Okay, from an IT perspective, it's really, really nice to hear that that this is a unique tool. Great. Any other outset kind of questions before we dig in? Okay, so we'll save some of this discussion time for the end, because I'm sure that after seeing a little bit more, we'll have our curiosity piqued and we'll be better positioned to pose the kinds of questions that might already be coming to mind. But yeah, let's try to cover a little more ground first. So moving into a practice exercise, does everybody have access to the Airtable collaboration link that I sent around? I'll pull it up on my screen now so that you see what I'm referring to. Okay. All right, so you should see CCH Training Base 2. Is that correct? Are you guys able to see the training database that I have open? Good. Okay, wonderful. So here is where I'd like to give you some tasks, and it's relatively intuitive. So I'm going to ask you to start entering data, playing with the template that I've provided here, and then in a couple of minutes we're going to come back together and look at what we've accomplished. Maybe just before I do that, in fact, I would like to bring up. Good. So Hossein is entering in the database there. That's good. I would like to quickly demonstrate what we've done with it in our campaign internally, and then that'll give you a little more idea of how to play around with it and provide some questions. So, okay. So this is the internal database that we're using to manage the hub campaign. And it allows us, in this table, it's a traditional spreadsheet. All of my colleagues here at Climate Reality can enter data. We can do it all at the same time. We can edit the data. If I have a question about this Oakville entry here in the cities table, I press spacebar, and it pulls up the Oakville entry. I can tell that which province it's in, whether there's a Climate Action Network member present in that city, the population of the city, has a climate hub been established there yet, what phase we're expecting to launch in that city. So it's a typical database software. And what can be done here is I can then link to here, I can say Hussein. So I can't tag you in this one because you're not a collaborator on this database, but I could say, for example, at Alicia, and I could tell my colleague Alicia, please fill this in if you have further information. So this allows me to assign tasks to people within this database structure. I send him this, and he can choose to receive an email as a result, or to receive a Slack message. And I think there are other alternatives as well, possibly other social media alternatives. So pretty simple, but again, a tool that has henceforth been reserved for paid services. Moving through the database, we'll take a look pretty closely at the members section here, because this is where I can allow specific access, special access to the database. And the way I do that is here I have a bunch of different views. This is the database view that I'm looking at. I can also create a shareable view, which would remove some of the personal details, but allow me to share a list of all of the potential contacts that we have in a certain city. Now, we have done this already with the partners database. I won't get into that at the moment, but just to say that you can choose which data gets shared, and then when you preview this, if I want to show you what this will look like when I send it, and this is blocking my mouse, but there we go. So when I send a link to this database, people are able to see, okay, all right, these folks are involved in these cities with these organizations. This is a unique feature of Airtable that does not exist, to my knowledge, in any other free database solutions.
Matthew, can you click on expanding one of the records? I want to see like what's just.
Sure thing. So if I expand one of the records in the shared table, I get only the data that I've chosen to share that appears.
Nothing more. And then what about like the chat and everything like that would not be there, right? So it's safe to share.
The comments?
Yeah, the comments.
That's a good question. We can test that really quickly. So I'm going to go back to the main view, which only the internal collaborators should have access to. And I'm going to drop a comment in here. Okay. So I'm going to say, hello, Hussein. Sorry, I spelled your name wrong. Okay.
All good.
And let's find out if Carol Devine, in our shared view now, the shared list, if I was to view what the public sees when they receive this link, and I open Carol's file, no, you don't see any of the comments that the internal team has left.
Perfect.
So that becomes a little bit more useful, and that might not have been the most pertinent example to share. However, when we talk about partner organizations in various cities, what we've started to do is allow people, we don't want to publish, personal details and email addresses, from across the country. But what we can do is allow folks to, from a shareable database link, they can, we've left on our website, if you go to climatehub.ca, you will be able to take the phone number of any of these organizations, pick up the phone and call the person who is associated with, who has been recommended, in fact, to be a potential partner for a local hub in that community. So if you take a look at climatehub.ca in the toolkit section, that's where you'll find a partner database that you can, first of all, contribute to, and secondly, view and say, oh, I didn't realize there were 15 other organizations in my city that are working on climate. I didn't realize there were 55. I didn't realize there were 50 social enterprises that have renewable technology at their core, and that would be logical partners with us in the push for a carbon neutral cities. So let me just take a quick detour into the form view. So we've looked at the database view, which is the main view here. And now we're going to look at the form view. So the form view allows me to create a form that people will fill out, and I can choose which fields they will fill out. They don't have to fill out every single field in my spreadsheet. I can choose just name, province, phone number. So in this case, we've asked our Climate Hub members and sympathizers across the country to fill in this suggest a partner organization. And we've got over 400 partners now listed as logical partners, logical allies to help the hubs push their municipalities towards carbon neutrality. And what happens when I fill this in is that it creates a new entry in my Airtable database. And all of a sudden, when I click on this link to view the database, I can see the entry that I just put in. So that's one powerful way that Airtable allows you to collect data from a whole bunch of people and share it with a whole bunch of people. And you just got to be careful within your own respective hubs to respect privacy. So one of the things that we're doing at Climate Reality is allowing hubs autonomy. We don't have control over them. We're not managing them. We are supporting them. We are encouraging them. We are providing inspiration when possible through webinars. We're providing training through workshops and through the toolkit section of our website. But it is up to each hub to manage its privacy and manage its the details. We can suggest best practices, but we don't, as an organization, have the capacity to get our hands into every single municipality in Canada. But that's the vision we have for this initiative, is that citizens feel empowered and they have the tools to be powerful. Because it doesn't take a PhD to talk to your neighbors and say, this is an issue that we should care about. Let's make something happen. And in fact, as we've remarked, regrettably, of late, facts and PhDs don't fly sometimes in the real world, and it can be much more powerful to hear from your neighbor than it is to hear from a think tank based in Ottawa or Washington, D.C. So that said, I'll dig a little further into what we've got here. We have a little to-do list that allows us to kind of like track where we're at, what we have to do. A list of links, which is very helpful, and we use a free tool called Bitly to track the engagement on those links. So we would encourage hubs to do likewise if they want to see, okay, which of the initiatives we're running are most interesting, which are less interesting. Keeping the links all in one place in the Airtable allows us to centralize data and allows us to have everything in one place. The webinar feature here allows us to explore different ways of displaying data. So we've looked at two ways of displaying data so far, the grid and the form. So I can have a form that allows me to enter data, and the grid, which displays the data in a typical spreadsheet format. Now we're going to have a look at three others. The gallery view, which is what we're using now for our webinars. And I'm going to create a link here to show you how this becomes useful. So all of a sudden, I go to climatehub.ca, I click on the webinars, I end up here. And granted, it's not the most elegant solution. I will certainly give you that. However, it is functional and free, which we've had trouble, and very simple to enter information. So I would encourage, like, those for us are very high priorities. And I can search the database here for example, digital tools or digital by itself, for example, and digital organizing tools shows up.
Just a quick question, Matthew. Can you switch like the view of this into calendar view just like easily, or is it like that has to be set up in the
very,
calendar?
very easy. Very easy.
Yeah, this is very cool. I don't think there's anything wrong. This is awesome. Yeah.
So this is one of the example of the views. And then if I'm interested in this community energy planning webinar, I click on it and I click on the recording link here. So again, it's not elegant, but at the moment, free, functional, and very easy to manage. So that is the gallery view. I will also give you a quick preview of the calendar view, which you can just create, and everything is automatic. There's no programming involved. There's nothing complicated about it. I simply say, show me the data in calendar view, and it plots everything out on a calendar for me, at which point I can, select this and attend or watch the recording of the webinar, for example. Now, this is the editing view that you're seeing right now. The public view of the calendar will look more like this, which is a little bit cleaner and easier to navigate.
Can you export any of those calendar entries into your own calendar?
You can, yes. And if I can, there we go. So you download the iCal here, and it is a ICS file that downloads, and you're able to enter those directly into your, and I believe we had previously set up a calendar subscription, and we stopped doing that for some technical reasons I won't get into. However, we're trying to solve those, and we'll hopefully have a calendar subscription that will allow folks to kind of just see the webinars showing up automatically and not need to think ahead, but say, hey, you know what, I'm free right now. Why not jump on this webinar? And that would simplify the onboarding process significantly. Finally, another view that is possible. So just to recap, we've looked at the grid view, we've looked at the gallery view, we've looked at the calendar view and the form view. Just maybe going a little bit deeper in the form view. When it comes to webinars, I can also have the webinar speakers enter their data here. So instead of back and forth with 10, 15 emails negotiating, okay, what's this, what's that, can you send me this, can you send me that? I send one link, and it simplifies life significantly. Drop your PowerPoint or keynote presentation here. Would you be okay if we shared this PowerPoint with our audience, attach a headshot for our promotional purposes, a brief biography about yourself, a brief summary about the presentation you're going to give, and any questions you want to ask the audience during the webinar. And on our end, that simplifies data collection immensely. And that information, the nice thing about it, maybe this is getting a little too granular, but when they enter that information in this form, it ends up in this grid view. But because there's no date, because I did not ask them for a date in the form, it will not show up in the calendar. And so they're providing the information that will help me build the promotional materials, etc. And it all ends up in the same place. It's all centralized, which is very clean from an administrative perspective. However, and then I can create a webinar from that entry with a date and make sure that it's polished to end up in the calendar view. Finally, the last view we'll take a quick look at is Kanban. And I can organize the webinars in this view by any number of variables. I can choose category. I can choose to group them by theme. So if I can have a different row here, pardon me, a different column for each theme of webinar that we're holding. So in this case, we've got a number of unconfirmed and potential webinars that we have in the kind of like expectations for the future, what we'd like to run, transportation planning, public participation, urban ecotourism, ecofiscal, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, we have the webinars that have already taken place that you can watch and the webinars that are coming up. For example, this webinar here is now past, so I need to go into the database and change it to from upcoming to past. So it would be nice if that happened automatically, but it doesn't.
I was going to say, can you just drag it from upcoming to past?
That's a good question. Yeah, so here, could I do that? You
should be able to.
Yeah, correct.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. And same thing goes with the calendar. You can change dates by just moving it around. So again, I'm quite excited. This is a very cool tool.
Excellent, excellent. There's a lot, I mean, and I should have provided a caveat at the beginning of this webinar, or the beginning of this workshop, that I am by far and away still a novice when it comes to this tool, as with many other things. So I'm happy to share what I know, and I'm really even more happy to be in an interactive setting like this that I can learn as well. So thanks so much. That pretty much covers it for functionality of Airtable. I'll jump out here to show you the kind of home base of all of the tables that I'm working in. And so this is like the dashboard of all the different tables. These are bases that we used last year during the PCP the People's Climate Plan campaign, example bases that you can build off of, templates, and the Community Climate Hub bases. So we've got the training bases down here, the one we're all on right now, and the one I was just showing you with some of the private information removed, in addition to bases for the hubs that currently exist that we would like this workshop today to help launch folks in those communities onto those bases so that they can start using them. But there's nothing to say you can't, in your own community, create one immediately. Nothing stopping you from going ahead and doing that. So with that in mind, I'd like now for you to, in conversation with me, play around in this training database, play around with the features, play around with the toggle bars, the hide this, the filter that, and for us to have a bit of a back and forth conversation. So that any immediate questions that you have can be answered.
Matthew, well, everybody, the partners tab and the purpose of that partners functionality seems to be similar to something that Climate Change Connection has built for Manitoba. And I in the chat, I gave a link to the page on our website where our connection network functionality, such as it is, exists, because this is pretty exciting, this Airtable solution as a potential replacement for it. One of the things that we've got in our connection network is we've got just a 2-line summary of what that organization does that's sort of pertinent to sustainability or climate change. And so it's more than just having the name of an organization, but just a hint as to how it is that this organization is linked into this issue. And I'm just suggesting that as we build the partner aspect of Airtable here, that we have a field included for just a summary of what that organization does.
Yeah.
And then if like, as I can see, potentially replacing what we've attempted to do locally with Climate Change Connection with what's going on here. So, but most of the people in Manitoba, I suppose the same as every place else, is they're most concerned with what's happening locally, and what's happening on the other end of the country might at some times have interest and be something they're interested in. But for the most part, they just want to see the local information front and center, and then it would be an option for them to go broader. Because if you give them all the information for the country, it's too broad, it's too much information, they might just turn it off. But if you present them, for example, with Manitoba as the information that they see, and then they can select others. So what I'm saying is there a way to present the information with some kind of a default filter in some views?
Well, yeah, the value of having a national database is limited to organizations that operate nationally. So our suggestion, and this is to be negotiated with hubs, is that you manage it locally, your database, and if an organization or if there is interest, this needs to be worked out. I mean, I can't pretend like we don't want to be the organization that is collecting and hoarding all the data, like, because that's typically what has happened historically, and that's what causes collaboration to be less desirable and people to start getting their backs up about this and that. So we would prefer that hubs themselves create the databases, use the databases, and within that somewhere have a little checkbox that says, I would like to share my information as a partner organization or as an individual who's interested in this campaign. I would like to share it with the national database. And then at that point, there's an option for that to be included in the national database without it being required. And with respect to what people are seeing in their local database, then they would only see their hubs. So I would see on the Climate Change Connection website, I check partner list, and it would just be those in my region.
Yeah, and looking at this, I can see that, let's say if Kurt, you had your database in the same sort of like, table, then you can easily, like, let's say filter by province or city and so on. And then you can actually take that view, which is the filtered view, and embed it to your website. So I think, like, as you're saying, I 100% agree that having it all together and then taking different views and then sharing it that way, it would just work the best. And I saw in the video that it has a cool embed feature as well. So maybe if you're thinking of replacing it, that might be the way to go.
And is there a WordPress plugin for Airtable?
No, it seems like it has a embed feature. I'll look into it more and I'll basically send you an email. But my guess would be that it would have like an iframe that you can that you can plug into WordPress. I think if I remember correctly, WordPress has like a iframe plugin.
And there's an iframe, yeah. So if it just works just like an iframe, that'd be great. That'd be super. And especially if you can embed it with the filters already turned on, like so that the view that is on our website is similar to what they're used to, kind of thing. But you'd have the functionality of Airframe. Or Airtable rather, in the plugin, or in the iframe.
Exactly.
Cool.
So I'll play around with this, and I'll connect with you, and I'll send you what I find.
Super. That sounds great. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, everyone. And yeah, you do have each other's email addresses in the message that was sent out earlier. Except for Kurt's, however. Actually, Kurt jumped on late. So Hossein, you already have Kurt's contact information. I can send it your way. Yeah.
I just put it on Airtable.
Good stuff. Good. That's awesome. We're making good use of it already. So listen, there are really a lot of other features that we could get into, including embedding, which is really interesting. But instead of me kind of directing where this goes, I'd prefer if kind of the questions came out as you explored it and used it. So any other questions from those who haven't jumped in yet? Because again, I'd like it to be directed in the direction that is most useful to you the last 10 minutes or so that we have together.
and I'll kind of shut up now because I'm getting too excited about this too. I'll let more conversation go about the uses of it.
One of the beautiful things, once you've created a list of partner organizations in your community, then, or influencers, or anything really, is you can use this tool called Batch Geo to map them out. And by entering their postal code or by entering their street address, you can for free, again, which is the beauty of, I hope, this campaign, is that it can be replicated by anybody, anywhere. You can map out in your city, because geography matters and gravity matters. When you're close to somebody, you have an attraction, an affinity to them. It's easier to walk across the street and borrow a cup of sugar than it is to call my friend across the city and say, hey, when could we meet up to grab a cup of sugar? But there's a reason that, neighbors, you tend to hang out more with the people or the friends that are close to you. And so I think geography is a really big piece. And that's the Community Climate Hub is really an outgrowth of that philosophy, that proximity matters, and that people who live in the same community have the same preoccupations, they have the same challenges, they have similar in any extent. Here's a pin in Peterborough. So Melanie, I don't know if you're aware of these things. Your community here is at PCP Corporate Milestone number 1, which is the Partners for Climate Protection milestone. Has that been updated since we pulled the data from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities? You might be muted, but maybe I can unmute you. There we go. Are you still with us, Melanie?
Hi, it's Melanie back.
Hey.
We've actually just completed milestone 2 and 3 for
Great.
the city, the county, and the 8 municipalities, and we're just completing milestone 2 and 3 for the 2 First Nations. They're just a little behind.
Terrific to hear.
Oh, and that's really just the county, so it's a little misleading on the title because the county is a single municipality.
Okay.
But when we call it the Greater Peterborough Area, there's actually 12 partners involved in that. And so we're all working together on both the corporate and the community front, moving at the same time.
Okay, great. And from your perspective as a climate change professional in the public service, do you see citizen groups, or even within the public service, leveraging Airtable? And if so, how? If not, are there any questions that you would bring forward for us to address?
We have a really large community network that we could literally put on this database and share a lot of information, but also use this to gather more into our network. And then we can actually focus, because we've run through the development of our climate change action plan, we had about 125 community members participating in, it was about 9 different theme areas. So even by theme area, so whether it's transportation versus water versus energy, for example, we could specifically put information and links into all of those and keep them up to date on both action as well as tools and resources. So this, this database would be a great tool for our climate change action plan.
Great, really glad to hear that. Any comments from you, Marie-Ève? I know that you've worked with large organizations, mobilizing thousands of people in the past. How do you see this working, or are there any questions that you'd have for us to address?
Yeah, well, I'll need to explore it a little bit more, but it seems like very powerful and very interesting. So, especially for mobilizing people and to get together. Well, so there's no restriction. We can communicate with anyone that's on the database, and anyone has agreed to receive emails or to be contacted. So it goes, I haven't seen it, sorry, maybe I've missed that, but we have their emails and telephone numbers and all that stuff in the database.
Yes, yep. So for the hub campaign, I mean, we'd be using, sorry, I jumped out of the other one here, but the training database. So here, when we ask people to fill in, a membership kind of form, they receive this sign up, and in French, this one. So from our French website, they will fill in their name, their municipality, and down here they will choose, I would like to share my information with other members of the hub in my neighborhood and receive information like webinar updates, etc., from the national campaign. So that then from there we take the mailing list and pull it into MailChimp, pull it into whatever program that you want to use. At the local level, I would highly recommend not using a large kind of like mailing list. If it's a pretty small community, if it's a large city, then perhaps you'd be required to use some of that like traditional newsletter facilitation like MailChimp. But if it's a small community, I'd highly recommend distributed communication model where I'm going to communicate to the 100 people I know, and my other friend who's involved in the hub is going to communicate to a different 100 people that they know, because it's those kind of personal connections and relationships that are going to change the way our campaigns are run. I think we need to move away from the one email coming from a head office in Montreal or in Ottawa or in Toronto and expecting that to mobilize thousands of people. We need a huge transition. We need to move quickly, and we're not going to do it with one or two people sending an email, on a monthly basis. So for me, this is a really powerful way to give the power to the people, to give the tools to folks on the ground, and to let them explore with them, let them experiment with them, and let's push, together. I mean, the news of France announcing carbon neutrality yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw that go by, but really exciting.
Well, that brings another question to me. Matthew, are you planning to translate everything on that platform in French?
So everything currently on our Climate Hub website is in French. So if you go to carrefourclimat.ca, you can see my screen. Here it is. So everything here is in French. However, Airtable itself does not provide support in French. So there are limitations to what Airtable provides, but within our boîte à outils, tu peux voir la liste des vidéos. Il y a des vidéos en français, des vidéos en anglais. The partner database is in whatever language that people have entered it. So if they entered it in French, then it's in French, and if they entered it in English, then it's in English. And when you get in here to respond to your previous question, Kurt, there is a place to describe kind of what the organization does, although we don't include it here. So you can include a sector of activity, but it doesn't give you a summary of, we haven't asked for the summary. However, there are comments, which we haven't included here either. But that's a good point. In our private database, we have a column of comments that allows us to say, this organization is working really specifically on this project, and that could be an interesting link with this other, so it allows us to do that kind of thing, but we need to make that more public. We just didn't want to provide too high of a barrier to entry so that people were turned off by like, oh, I've got to write up a sentence or two about this. This is going to take me too much time. I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah, and having a limitation as to the number of characters requires people to be somewhat concise in how they summarize that organization. And that's where it is useful, because you can scan down and say, oh, this sounds like an organization I should learn more about. And then you click the link and then you go and learn more, or contact somebody or whatever. So
yeah. Marie-Ève, did I respond to your question regarding the translation? Which elements were you asking about being translated?
Well, the Airtable, I was asking if it was a plan to translate it, but I understand that it's an external tool that you are using. Yeah. So yeah. I'm not expecting that it's going to be translated in French, unfortunately, but still we can do something with the carrefourclimat.ca, which I was already registered on, but I didn't connect through.
Right. Yeah. So once you are inside Airtable, you can create forms that are completely in French, like this one. Oh, pardon me, not that one. Maybe we don't have that linked properly to the right form. Anyways, we do have a French form that allows you to enter. And certainly when you sign up here, this is an entirely French form that is powered by Airtable as well. Okay.
And those forms, sorry, if you're entering data into a form, can you have a French or an English front end and the data still goes to the same data table back end?
Yes, that's possible. Absolutely.
Right.
That's what we have set up. Yeah.
Good.
Great. So if I was to consult our agenda, where did I put it now? Not there, not there. Just a little conclusion. Any final thoughts? Anything to wrap it up today, folks?
I just have one question about I've got access to the shared base of the CCH training database too. Then you showed us the CCH map. Did that come from, did access to that come from the Climate Hub website, or how did you get to that?
Yeah, that's here on the Climate Hub website. You in the toolkit section, there's a map.
Good. Okay.
So this interactive.
That's okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody, and for agreeing to be the guinea pigs of this very first workshop. Your feedback would be really appreciated. So if you would mind taking a couple of minutes just to let me know via email what could have been better, what could have, what you would have, what you were expecting, and perhaps what you got or what you didn't get out of this. Then I would very much appreciate that. So thanks very much for taking time, and it was really great to talk to you all.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for doing this.
Merci.
Salut tout le monde.